find it so much easier to do the podcast after a Broncos win?
So much easier.
So much easier.
I mean, we've been spoiled. I mean, that's like 9 in a
9
row.
wins. Yeah, let's go, dude. And I'm always like, but it's always nerve-wracking. And I don't know, like, because you're going to the games, and so, but it's always nerve-wracking up to the last second, literally, of just like, oh, we're gonna lose this. No, we're gonna win it. No, we're gonna lose it. I don't know, man.
Well, you just got to believe.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Okay, now how do you feel overall, like defense, offense, after watching the game on Sunday? Are you feeling like we're just well-rounded, ready for the playoffs, or?
I wouldn't say well-rounded yet.
Okay.
I think that Chiefs game was the biggest game in the NFL so far.
Yeah.
The Chiefs were about to win the AFC West, 10 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, just incredible. So it was the biggest game. So here we are, the biggest game of Bo Nick's career, the biggest game of everyone's career.
Yeah.
And they show up. But they did it in all three phases. So that was the first time we've seen that all season.
Yeah.
Where the special teams were on point, the defense was on point, and the offense was on point.
Yeah.
Bo finally looked comfortable standing in the pocket.
Yeah.
The receivers finally made plays down the field, more consistently. There was a few drops there. And then the running game was a legitimate threat in that game.
Even with the injury, because we got, like, he's out for the whole season now.
Yeah.
And so, but the running game still seems strong, even without our lead running back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's strong. It was
wasn't
effective.
Weak. Yeah, it was effective. Yeah. Yeah.
Where it was you could use it.
Yeah.
Versus, in previous weeks it was non-existent, and Bo's throwing the ball 35 times a game, and it's just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
But what I loved is going tailgating with you.
Yes.
That is the best part for me, man.
That's becoming my favorite part.
Okay, you're loving it. Good, because we've gone out twice now. Well, the first time we found the best tailgate, which was sweet. Like, we found it. You signed a ball for them,
Yes.
and you got to experience the Broncos tailgate.
Yes.
And then this last time we did Broncos tailgate trivia, brought
Yes.
to you by Mountain States Toyota. So big,
Yes.
much love to Mountain States Toyota. They're sponsoring the podcast. But that was fun, man, and the trivia and just
It was
interacting
great.
with people.
I think the obviously people were in a great mood because the team's winning. So big props to the Broncos football team. So people are just generally in a great mood in general. However, there's just so much hospitality.
Yeah.
People are just like, come on in, eat, drink, be merry. It's just,
do you
it's
love
such a great
still, like, what's
environment.
that feel like? Because here's the best thing about Brandon is, like, you literally, you don't, I don't want to say ego, but you're just so awesome with all the fans. It doesn't matter who comes up to you. If they want to take a picture, you're gonna stop what you're doing, take a picture, and you chat with them, man. You hang out with them. What does that feel like for you to still get such love from the Broncos fans?
I mean, it feels great. It's always for players, it's difficult when you don't play somewhere for very long, and then you move on. Yeah, kind of like where's my place? Where do I stand? I wasn't drafted here, or I didn't. Obviously, I had a really great season, but didn't win a Super Bowl. So, like, where does that still stand? But the fan base has just been incredibly welcoming, and which is the reason why I kept my residence here. For going on 18 years now, is that I just felt welcome just from the first day.
Yeah.
The first day I came here as a player, I felt welcomed here. And so I just been able to maintain it ever since. It's been great. One other thing that I say to folks is that I've been practicing my signature since I was in kindergarten.
For real? Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
To be a professional athlete.
You're preparing to be an athlete? That's
I've been
amazing.
practicing it.
Yeah.
So signing autographs and taking pictures and that whole part that comes along with being an athlete, being a professional athlete, it never gets old.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Well, it's funny because having been in the entertainment business for so long, I was always working. So for me to pull out my phone and take a picture with an artist or a musician or whoever, I always felt, I was like, man, I'm not trying to bug them. And I felt like that even yesterday. So I brought my 7-year-old who's a Chiefs fan. And so you had some family there that were Chiefs fans too.
Yeah.
But even then, I was like, I'm working with you doing this podcast, and I'm still no, I don't want to bug him for a picture. And then I leave the game and I'm like, man, I had my little dude there. I should have got a picture. But the interaction with all the fans was awesome. The trivia was great. We did mess up though.
Oh, yes,
and you texted me this morning. So
I know.
whoever that crew was, you want to apologize to the crew?
Yes, whoever that crew was, because our trivia question was the 3 Broncos Super Bowls. Name them in 5 seconds, right?
Yeah, what
And-
year did they happen?
Yeah, the championships, and they got them right, and they said 2015, but in my mind I was thinking 2016
Because it happened in February. Yeah, and
I
it
just
was not even your fault. It was
completely
ChatGPT's fault too.
I
'cause
completely
yeah.
goofed it. So that crew, I'm bringing y'all a case of beer.
Yeah.
Next home game. I
we
know
owe you
exactly where you are in the G
$5.
lot.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
exactly where you are. I'm finding you. I feel terrible. So I mean, and that crew, they were so good. They were so rowdy. They had food. They were circled
into
around.
it.
They were winning the money.
Well, okay. What's funny is they literally said, "Oh, Brandon, you tricked us," and I was like, "He tricked you."
I didn't get it right away.
And then when
They
you
were so
texted me
right.
this morning, I was like, "Oh no, we look like we're so cheap with $5."
Dude, we're $5. Dog, I got you.
We'll find
We
you.
got
All right. But so we got a podcast interview coming up. It's a really good interview. Super excited for this one. We already talked to them, or you already talked to them. You want to go a little bit about FarmBox, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah. FarmBox Foods, right here, based in Sedalia, Colorado. They are the winner of the coolest things made in Colorado from the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. They're a self-contained farm. Inside these shipping containers, it's climate controlled. They can grow 3 acres of food.
It really has the potential of making a difference for massive amounts of individuals out there, which was the craziest part for me. Their community involvement is awesome as well, which I
Yes.
know, Brandon, you're actively involved in the community. Our goal with I'm from Denver is to really give back to that. So it's a really great interview, and it was with Jake Savageau and then Jason Brown. And so great interview by you. Props to you. I stayed out of this one because I like hanging out in the background and hearing the interview. I'll come in and I'll talk tailgating with you, but I'll let you handle the heavy lifting of that.
Yeah, but it's the industry has been around for such a long time, and it's been talked about for 10, 11 years that it's the next generation of how we are going to grow and consume food.
Yeah.
And to finally see a business who's actually starting to scale it, it took a lot of time. They're on their 8th year, but they had the patience. Fortunately, they had the business acumen, the leadership, and the capital to be able to take
And
their time.
the brains, it was like the engineering that goes behind that is
To take their time
yeah.
to bring this to market.
Yes.
And also the different angles, thinking about it from a nonprofit angle, from large organizations that want to do good in the world, that have the capital to do good in the world. Here's a real option for them to bring food to areas where the food doesn't exist.
Yeah. It's a great interview by you, Brandon. Check it out. This podcast episode is brought to you by Mountain States Toyota, and also the tailgating when we go back out is also brought by Mountain States Toyota. So we'll find that crew that we did dirty.
Yes.
Until then, enjoy this podcast episode with FarmBox and Brandon Lloyd.
You all are fresh off of winning the coolest things made in Colorado from the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. Before we get there, let's talk about just the origins of FarmBox. Like, what was the idea? How did you two meet? Like, where did this come from?
Sure. Yeah, so we started late 2017. We originally weren't going to do shipping container farms, so we were going to do a development of shipping container houses. And the reason why is because housing is expensive, but International Building Code would have prevented us from doing that. It would have taken many years to get to the point where we could actually start a development. So we walked through one of our competitors' farms at a school, Mountain Vista High School. One of our partners his daughter was going to that school. And so we walked through it, learned a little bit about it. And matter of fact, I called Jason and said, can you come out here and walk through this? Can you build this? That's kind of how we started. And within a week or two, we had a warehouse in Castle Rock. We bought our first insulated container, and Jason can, tell you the rest of how he built it. That's what he did. So
the original business was to build a community of shipping container homes. And so had you ordered a shipping container yet, or this was just on paper?
It
Just
was,
like
it
on a
was like
napkin?
on a napkin.
Yep. Yep. And this is
Yeah,
the
and I
idea.
think the amount of capital that it would have taken to do that was a lot more than what we had envisioned.
Yeah.
So this was attainable, and we saw that there was a market for it, obviously a need for it. Now, we didn't really know what we know now 8 years ago because there's so many layers to it. But we jumped into it without knowing how to do it. We just kind of figured it out.
So you go over to Mountain Vista High School.
Yeah, so I had known Jake for quite a few years before FarmBox, just in the construction world. I had always kind of had some pride in myself of taking projects that other people didn't want, or things that, this is really hard, or you can't get it done. And I was always the stubborn one saying, I'll figure it out, right? The idea of FarmBox had come about. I heard about it through Jake and went over to Mountain Vista and toured it, walked through it. I had built a handful of, grow operations here in Denver when the marijuana industry had taken off. So I had quite a bit of experience in it. And we walked through the farm, and I think our first meeting, it was just, hey, come check this out. What do you think? Can you build it? Right? And I go, yeah, sure. I'm taking pictures. I figure it out, and I'm up for the challenge. And I think it was 4 or 5 days later, Jake called and goes, well, we rented a shop and a shipping container's on the way. And it was like, okay, we're going to do it, right? Like, let's go. I had never worked with a shipping container. I had never, worked with a modular structure like this. And we just had the opportunity. We crammed one in this little tiny shop, right? A shipping container's 8 feet wide, and this shop had to be maybe 14 or 16 feet wide, and a container being 40 feet long, and the shop was literally 40 feet long. Like we had no room, and we just figured it out. And we just started making relationships, meeting people in the industry, and we just started building it.
And so what was the toughest part about that? Was it, so it's, you're pretty much coming up with your own idea of how to, were the 3 racks part of the original process, or, how much welding were you gonna do? Were you gonna weld racks? Was it gonna be PVC? Where did those concepts start to come in?
Just researching, trial and error. I mean, we've got some great stories that first year of building this first farm, and building it was a challenge in itself. Just figuring out, like you said, all the pieces and parts, or what nuts and bolts do you use here, and what materials are here, keeping in mind of food safety, and building things to like a commercial kitchen grade or an industrial grade to where people are going to be beating this equipment up. So it's got to hold up. It's got to be serviceable so people can fix it. But then it's got to grow plants and be easy for people to work with. Yeah. So there are all these moving parts. And then we got the first farm built, and that's where the real fun started. We had days where we had neighbors in the shop calling us and saying, hey, your shop is flooding our shop. Oh. Or, all these things because something automation didn't work, or some piece and part didn't work it would work for 24 hours, but 48 hours it didn't work.
Right.
So it was going through and changing, and we ran that farm for a full year.
Yeah, we ran it for a year. We donated all the food to Denver Rescue Mission and
Food Bank of the Rockies.
Food Bank of the Rockies. So, I mean, thousands and thousands of pounds, and they would come and pick it up. A lot of things we went through were different iterations with the lighting, different lights, different tubes, different pieces and parts. How does the software work? So that was kind of an R&D phase where we're going through losing crops, figuring out how to grow things. So again, when we started, we didn't know anything about it.
You're a local awesome entrepreneur. So when you're looking at the business model for this, and you're like, what's the business case for this?
It was.
Did you factor in, all the time it was going to take for R&D?
No.
No. Did you?
So this is more of we didn't really understand the market. This market on a larger scale, there's been a lot of VC money that has gone into it. That's slowed down recently, but when we were first getting into it, money was going into it. We definitely saw a need for it. Didn't realize where it would go, but we knew that there was a need. And so it was very mission driven. It was mission driven, the fact that, we had to self-fund it. So it had to come from somewhere. We didn't know if we were going to get private equity or venture capital or somebody to invest to scale it, but we had to build the product, make sure that it worked, and then have proof of concept in order to take it somewhere. And I think the good thing about it is you learn everything about it. And I think what makes us different from some of the other companies that have done this is we can run really lean, and we developed other products that there's different vertical markets for. So it's not just vertical hydroponics. We have a couple different product lines. And so there's a lot of different vertical markets that we can get into, both in the private sector on the federal side, both that are driven by profit and that don't necessarily need a profit to make this work at scale.
But in the mind of an entrepreneur, how do you stomach that? How do you go through that?
I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you're getting into business, it's not like you hit the ground running and there's revenue right away. Sometimes you have to survive for, it could be years, and make it work. Yeah.
And you're talking about and that's just in a normal, volatile, entrepreneurial environment.
Yeah.
COVID hit.
Yeah.
Like, how did you navigate going through COVID with such a young business? Had you made any sales prior to that, or you were still in R&D phase?
Yeah, we had made some sales. So when we built our first farm, Jason has built a bunch of them. We eventually started working with a manufacturer here in Colorado called RK, and we started developing other product lines. But there's a process to go through there, first of a kind. We went through our first of a kind, we built a few more, then we transferred to a large manufacturer, and we have to build their first of a kind with them. And that's a long process. But
Sorry to interrupt. So you said different, multiple product lines of a self-contained storage farm.
Yeah. So we have the vertical hydroponic farm, which is the VHF. We have the gourmet.
And that's just racks and racks of.
It's a vertical farm, so there's vertical walls. They move from left to right.
Yeah.
There's 3 walls inside. There's a seedling tray area when you walk in where you're starting the process of growing the seeds, and then they get transferred to the wall before they're ready to harvest. The GMF is the gourmet mushroom farm, and that's set up like a lab. So there's 3 rooms inside, and you're growing gourmets or medicinal mushrooms at scale. And then the fodder system is a horizontal hydroponic system, and we developed that initially for fodder for livestock.
Got it.
Yeah. To answer your question about did we have clients, we did. Our first client was Centura. We started working with a couple hospitals. There was a container that, originally our first container went to Centura in Pueblo, right?
Our first manufactured container. Yeah. Well, the second one we ever built.
Natural Grocers, I think, was one of our second clients. So we did have sales, but COVID wasn't easy. I mean, it didn't shut us down. We still kept growing, little by little, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah. What were some of the lessons that you learned out of there? And you have multiple businesses.
Yeah, we have.
I have multiple
I have a couple
businesses
different companies and different partners, and
at the time of COVID.
Yeah.
And you are rescuing all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I have really good partners with these businesses, so it's not just me, and we have awesome teams, and so it's not me.
That's right. That's right.
I think through COVID it taught us patience for sure, because this company specifically, because it's self-funded and the product that we sell is not cheap, the projects that we do are expensive, and the clientele, it's not just everybody. It's very limited. So we have to find those clients. We have to build a relationship. The sales process is long. It's not a week or a month. It's oftentimes half a year to multiple years from start to finish. So I think patience is key. Yeah.
And Jason, how are you keeping yourself busy during that time?
I think during COVID, it really put a spotlight on food security. I mean, things were closing down. Food wasn't there, and that was some of the first impact I got to see. Our first project was in Pueblo at St. Mary Corwin with Centura, And again, leaving kind of my bubble of Littleton area and working in Pueblo, we actually worked in that farm a lot and helped their team grow. And all the produce that they grew either went to the hospital or went to the community food bank that was in the same parking lot. So it was a really cool program, and it was really cool firsthand exposure to see something we thought we were just building, and it was this fun, cool project, and we're gonna, build this farm. And then we started putting them in front of the community, and you start seeing the people who really need the food or didn't have access or don't generally eat fresh food. And that's kind of, St. Mary Corwin down in Pueblo was the first turn. And then again, every single one, even still to this day, the communities or the projects we fly into, they all have their own story. But COVID was strange because FarmBox put us in our own little bubble, if you will. We were still building farms on our own at the beginning of COVID. We were transitioning into the manufacturing partner. So we were building 1 and 2 farms at a time at our shop south of out there in Sedalia. And so at the time I was still wearing a welding helmet. I was still running a crew in the shop, and I was working with this partner trying to teach them how to build what we had built, right? It's not normal construction. You really got to be hands-on and making sure things are the right way. And so we were busy the whole time. I think back sometimes to COVID, and it was kind of a blur. Like, no traffic, nothing happening. And FarmBox fortunately kind of kept us sane. I mean, we never skipped a beat. We never shut down. We never closed. We just went on. It was just another day almost sometimes. But yeah, it was a strange time, but really empowering at the same time to see what we're doing.
During COVID, the shipping container costs just skyrocketed. How did that affect business?
They didn't skyrocket as bad as you might think. And at the time, we were building kind of onesie twosies anyway, and we were building them ourselves. So we were really in control of our costs and our manufacturing. So it didn't hit us really too bad. We have some great containers or some great partners in that container brokerage world at the ports. And of course, Rusty from the FarmBox team, he's in the logistics side. So we had a really good network of where to find them all. Yeah. And our model of repurposing those containers, we were buying containers that were decommissioned and not functional anymore anyway. Right. So we were repurposing something that somebody was actually trying to get rid of sometimes, and we would refresh it.
Right. Well, the price didn't skyrocket just because it was just the access too, right? Because there was less ships coming into the United States at the time, so supply and demand basically.
Yeah.
But there's still enough access that were being decommissioned during that time that still allowed you all to continue to work on them.
Yeah, I think like Jason said, we had some relationships that we have still that helped us. I think right now we've seen more price increases than we did in COVID for at least what we do with aluminum and different things. Prices are going up.
Yeah. So again, talk about where you were then and then where you are today. What has there been a drastic change in the manufacturing of the box, or is there more iterations coming? Or
it's kind of cool. We haven't had many changes. Starting with the hydroponic farm, the first unit that we had built is still running. It's in Delaware now at a college. That farm had been moved through, I think 5 or 6 states now, with a bunch of different programs. So it's cool to know the first farm we ever built, that one is kind of a one-off, right? And we had some changes going into second and third, but really what we're manufacturing now is almost exactly what we started with, which is what's really cool.
Yeah. Tried and true.
I mean, I imagine we've got some changes planned, coming for next year. They're not really to the user. They probably wouldn't notice anything. But we're now operating in a sense of like lean manufacturing and things that are easy to support the customer, right? Because let's say the first 10 units we built, the only people who are able to help are myself and the couple guys who started, in that building side of the company internally. now that we're scaling, I gotta be able to have 20 people who can answer phones or help customer support or fix things. So our goal is, one, to manufacture the unit, more efficiently, make it more mainstream, more replicatable, and then easier to support. Because a big learning curve for me was building something is cool, right? You can build it, you can make it work, but when you put it in somebody else's hands across the country or out of the country, now what?
Yeah.
You have to be able to support, because the FarmBox side, as much pride as I have in building it, that the pride is now shifted in making sure that unit works. I mean, it's somebody's now relying on food.
Yeah.
It's got to work. They have to be able to run it. It has to work in snowy weather, hot weather, wherever it goes.
Yeah.
So, the bigger part of that mission is after you ship it.
So Jake, talking about the business of these farms. So, who are the typical clients? Who purchases them? Say you drop one in a remote location in a impoverished part of the world. Who's typically the purchaser of that, and then who runs the operations?
Sure.
Can you run us through that
Yeah.
process?
So right now I would say we're in about a dozen vertical markets in the private sector, and we work on the federal side. So, for instance, when we started, it was hospitals, grocers. We work with restaurant groups. We also work with a lot of individuals that they'll find us, they want to start a business or start feeding their community, and that may be profit driven. So they may be, have experience with other businesses. This might be their first, they might be retiring, or they're in a real rural area or inner city. But outside of that, a lot of who we work with, schools, for instance, like we talked about, Catholic charities. So those organizations, those institutions are not necessarily driven by profit. So their ROI is different than we got to make money to keep this going. Yeah, it's impact in the community. There's a lot of layers to that. But so I would say about a third of our clients are not profit driven. And the clients that are profit driven, they range from a bunch of different markets in the vertical markets in the private sector. But typically who runs it, sometimes it'll be the actual purchaser of the product. If it's a family or a couple that live in rural wherever or inner city wherever, they'll actually be running it. Oftentimes it's not, and we go there, we train them. Jason's a huge part of that. So we do, we'll deploy the farm, we'll send somebody out there to train them and support them after they get the product. So a lot of what Jason mentioned with redundancies on how to make the product better so that it lasts longer, we have less issues on the back end. That's a big part of what we do, and make it more efficient. So, for instance, you can grow more produce, you can grow it faster, higher yields, less cost as far as power and water and things like that. That's also a focus on the manufacturing side.
And so talk about those remote locations. Maybe you have to translate some of that material, or what about if they don't necessarily have enough access to water? Because what are you all using? Up to 10 to 15 gallons, is that per day?
Right around there.
Yeah.
And so is that, you talk about Jamaica. What if there's salt in the water? What are all those processes look like?
It's all in the design, right? So we've got water filtration and everything needed for that. Jamaica was our first time sending a unit to an island like that. So there was, high salt to water. There were a number of other contaminants in the water. Jamaica didn't have great water overall. That one was a grocery store, and that was a big one. So I flew in to Jamaica peak of COVID, and we kind of had to jump through all the hoops. We had to get they weren't going to let us fly, right? As tourists or traveling, we had to get like an agriculture exemption. We had to find all these kind of loopholes to get us there to even start. And it was at a big grocery store chain, and I guess I could say I fortunately haven't been in a grocery store that had no produce. Everything was frozen. I had assumed, this tropical island, they're going to have all this stuff growing. They don't. Anything that they did grow, they exported it. And then during COVID, I flew in and they had closed the ports. How you had mentioned during COVID, things aren't shipping, people aren't moving, food's not moving. And it kind of reset my brain on, while I was there, grocery stores were empty. and things were happening that, a small island like Jamaica had closed its doors to try and prevent COVID even coming into the island at the time. So, a lot of challenges with that one. But when it came to water, obviously power was no issue. It was in Montego Bay, it's a big city. Grocery store bought it. Local people, employees of the grocery store operated it. And they just brought the produce straight from the container right into the grocery store.
Have you checked on it since the hurricane?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have it set up. We actually have a number of units that have been in hurricane areas. Nova Scotia, we've got some units. That one's been hit, I think 3 times now. And he's set his up. It's connected to the grid and to the water supply, right, in the city. But he's got like a reservoir tank of water and a generator. And the last few hurricanes, it hit, everything was wiped out and his farm was running. And he shifts from, he's a private operator. It's sitting in his driveway, literally in his driveway, and he just does a community agriculture program, right? When those hurricanes hit, he was the first one who shifted. Anything he had, he donated it for those following weeks, and he would just grow as much as he could. And it was in the construction setup, right? We know this is hurricane zone, higher off the ground, or you attach them better, or whatever you might do for that area. But a handful have been through hurricanes at this point.
Yeah. And that's a big part of what we do too. Like, with Jamaica, these islands we're in, it's not that we don't have enough food. It's that it's not decentralized. And so, the food system, we're wasting a lot of the food that we grow because we're transporting it long distances. There's all these problems. So if you're decentralizing things like the clients that we work with are doing, then they're in control of everything they're doing. That's a big part of what we do, is the decentralizing of the food system.
And so, and as you were designing this business, a lot of what vertical farming companies run into is, like you were saying, taking on too much capital, too much automation, right? So, what were those some of the things you were thinking about? Obviously, you were thinking about not taking on capital, but what about the automation? Because when you're building it, it was like, maybe more robots or more sensors.
We definitely didn't have the problem of taking on too much capital. We had the opposite problem of that. But I think looking at what all these other companies have done, the amount of money that's poured into it, where they failed, that helped us kind of navigate where we would go. And a big part of that is diversifying the product line so that we could reach more clients. And I think with Jason, the development of the gourmet mushroom farm was kind of the next step to that. Because so far I don't know if I haven't seen anybody that's doing that at scale just quite yet. But I hope that answers your question a little bit. I think the market just showed us what to do.
Right.
And we didn't have all the answers. So we had to kind of figure out as we were moving along. But we learned as we were going. We made mistakes, and just kept moving forward.
Well, how did you think about the technology piece?
Going all the way back, I can't tell you how many times I remember saying, we had so many talks, robotic arms, all this automation, all these moving parts, right? One, from the manufacturing standpoint, we didn't want to outprice ourselves. You start putting all this stuff in, and I think it becomes unaffordable to what we thought we were trying to do in the beginning, right? Who's going to pay for it? It's already expensive. And what are we really trying to do? And I can't tell you how many times I remember saying, we can't replace the human. You don't want to replace the human interaction. I think aside from the product, what's really cool is you have a great farm, but what's the human impact side of it?
And even talking about you know, the humidifier, is it the humidification system in there? You know, like, from what I saw on when I was out at the campus, like how many iterations did you have before you got to that platform? You know, what was the research like? Even looking into that type of software, did you have to retrofit it to fit into a small container? You know, and like thinking about just the science behind, you know, being in a container when probably a lot of these companies during this time, they were doing them in warehouses. They were vertical farming in warehouses. So how did you factor in all those concepts?
I mean, I had toured a lot of these grows when we started hydroponic food production grows, right? And that was one of the first things that stuck out is all these big warehouses popping up. We had heard, like Jake said, all the money going into that industry a handful of years ago, and people putting millions and millions of dollars into these builds. And in the end of the day, my mind still always said, well, you're growing lettuce. We always kind of joked, like, you're growing lettuce. And another kind of funny comment, I was like, you could drop lettuce seeds on the side of the road and they're going to grow, right? So you're putting millions and millions of dollars into these warehouses, and then the electrical bill, nobody was paying attention to the cost of what you were doing. And you've got mechanical lifts and all this equipment, and you're just growing lettuce. So the only way the cost is going to go forward into the produce going out, right? It has a cost to grow it. And part of our design, kind of a stubborn thing for myself, is trying to find everything on the lowest power demand possible. How do we make this farm run as cheap as we possibly can on low electrical, low water, low maintenance, low human time, low labor? And that's just the way we started, of how do we build it the best we can, easiest to work, cheapest to run.
Yeah, and I think we did talk about doing a bunch of things that were automated. The problem with doing that is when you start a company and you don't have the resources or capital, it's very hard to do things like that until you get to a certain scale, which now we're starting to get to that certain scale where we can have those conversations. But even now, like Jason said, having the human interaction is very important for a lot of reasons, specifically with the clients that we deal with, where the ROI is not profit driven, where they have these kids come in and learn how to grow food, teach them how to run a business. That's really important. So taking that away, it may be the right fit in certain aspects, but probably not for what we do in that small of an environment as well, because it's hard to do. Yeah.
So Jake, you're fresh off winning the coolest thing made in Colorado off the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. What does that award mean to FarmBox?
Yeah. Well, I think it validates what we've built, the culture and the company, and it's not me, we have an amazing team, so I didn't build the product, I was a very small part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it validates and it makes everybody that's a part of the team understand where we're going.
Right.
So I have a story. When we started this company in this little warehouse in Castle Rock, we had a bunch of whiteboards like a typical company does, and that's how you figure stuff out, is you whiteboard it. And shortly after Jason started building this first of a kind vertical hydroponic farm, we had a bunch of things that were written on that whiteboard, and one of them was NASA, and now we're working with NASA.
Wow.
So I'm a big fan of speaking things into existence, and visualizing it. And so I think it validates everything that we've done, and I know that they're super proud of it. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about NASA.
Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
I mean, NASA's kind of a unique project, right? It kind of came out of the woodworks, a LinkedIn message. Going back to those whiteboards, we had schools, hospitals, restaurants. We had all these markets, right? And we were checking it off, and Jake and I being from the early days. You know, there's nobody else in the company who's been here as long as Jake and I. So going back to these whiteboards, I remember having conversations of, you know, well, we could put one in space, whatever. And it was like, I don't know, you know, that's a little far fetched. And you know, if you fast forward to now, and we had NASA reaching out to us and wanting us to do project design, and we were just awarded that contract about 3 weeks before the government shut down. So, you know, communication cut off, but we were awarded the project before that, and we're actually starting to build that here in about 2 weeks. So that project will start coming together as a first of a kind. It's nothing like anything we're building. You know, it's kind of a proprietary design with their team and their engineers. And I had designed a unit, and we got it approved through their design in 2 weeks. I mean, I had a model put together, sat with 6 or 7 NASA engineers, and they had nothing to pick apart, and green light go. So that was a pretty cool feeling.
Dang, congratulations.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about vertical farming, another thing that comes up is the types of food that can grow in the vertical farming, maybe not being able to sustain a well-rounded diet. You know, there's only so much lettuce you can eat, right? So how do you think about that as FarmBox is moving forward?
I mean,
I would say, you know, there's actually a lot of things that you can grow that most people don't know you can grow. But a lot of our clients aren't growing 50 different things, you know, so they may be growing like edible flowers, or they might be doing a whole container of basil. But we do have a horizontal hydroponic farm, and in horizontal hydroponics, there's a lot more things that you can grow. It's not everything that you can grow in the dirt you can grow in that farm, but it's a wide range of produce. And then you have the GMF, which is gourmet mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms.
Yep.
So super nutrient dense. You know, so between all the product lines that we have, there's a vast array of things that you can grow. It's not going to be everything, but it's a lot of things.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then when you're working with NASA, obviously you probably can't talk about a whole lot about that, but in your research, what types of food would the astronauts be eating when they're in space?
so we're not growing food at all, actually. We're growing cotton. So it's a project for cotton. I don't know. I don't have all the access to the information of why cotton. I know the cotton's being used as a binder product for some other assembly as a thread, and that's all we know.
Wonderful.
The first project will run at Kennedy Space Center, and then they're going to move it to Pearl Harbor, the Kwajalein Islands, and then there's conversation of a second contract for one going to the ISS.
Yeah, and that's the second alternative agricultural product that I've heard that's being grown out of FarmBox. The first one, when I was on campus, was trees. You're able to grow. You're starting trees off in these farms.
Yeah, blue spruce. Blue spruce was the target, a variety of pine trees, and it was again taking the idea of it doesn't have to be just food, using the system as a conduit to grow anything. I mean, the pine trees is cool for reforestation, for power line mitigation. Maybe utility companies are replacing trees that they're cutting down for new power lines or infrastructure. The cotton, right? Another one. We've got customers who bought our hydroponic farm, and they're growing produce. Like you said, we're not growing, squash and carrots and watermelon and bigger outdoor crops. But what we do have customers doing is they have a traditional farm, and they're using our farm for propagation of all those large plants. So they're starting a whole cycle of whatever large scale plants are growing in their traditional farm within our container during the snowy months, and then they're transplanting them outside. Nice. So they're not even using our farm for the full growth cycle. They're just using it as, kind of a booster to their original farm.
Nice. Well, I was sent home with a bag of those blue oyster
What'd you think?
mushrooms. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, not only are they just beautiful, but I mean, the flavor, I had a little bit of it raw, and it's just the flavor was off the charts, but then pan roasting them.
Yeah.
Another level.
I'm glad you like mushrooms. You either like them or you don't. There's a lot of people that don't, but
I mean,
they're
but
awesome.
They're
Yeah.
awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
incredibly meaty.
Yeah.
and flavorful. And that was just with olive oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I put the salt and pepper on a little after, but
Yeah.
just with olive oil, I mean, it was incredibly flavorful.
Yeah. Mushrooms are good. Again, you got to like them. I think it's a texture thing for some people, but I love them. They're
know.
awesome.
Yes, they're great.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, in 2026 and beyond, what are the goals for FarmBox?
Sure. Well, I think, that because we've been self-funded for since the inception, we've built a really strong foundation, and we have a product line that we can scale, and we have vertical markets that there's proven concepts in that can scale. Right now our focus is to expand those vertical markets by finding the right partner, the right capital partner that can bring some of the resources and capital and some of the relationships that we need. I think that we're close to that, and so that's one of the biggest goals. And obviously expanding our reach. For instance, like Catholic Charities and LDS Church. So those two markets by themselves are so big, because they're doing so many good things that are not profit driven. And so once we have proof of concept, then they can take this to wherever they want to take it to, whatever country, whatever reach they have, that can be scaled. So it's not only finding the right capital partner, but continuing to scale in the vertical markets that we're in, making more of an impact wherever that is. If it's here in Denver, if it's at the south side of Chicago, if it's in a foreign country, where you literally have no access to food. That's the goal for FarmBox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being from Colorado and being a Colorado-based company, what does it mean for the community? Like, what does it
Yeah.
mean for your impact?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, I think that we're working on a leasing option, right? Because it's expensive to buy a product from us. We look at projects, not product. So a lot of the institutions that we work with, they don't have $250,000 or more to start a project with us. So what we're doing right now is figuring out this leasing option. We'll be able to bring it to these food banks. They'll be able to have people volunteer to run these. There will be an ROI right away. And if there isn't, at least it will be attainable for them to do that. And so then you're actually making an impact on a large scale. If you can imagine having these being run at all these food banks, sure, you have donations, you have box food, you have processed food, you have canned food, but you need nutrient dense food, especially for kids when their brains are developing. They're eating poison and sugar, and it's not good. So we gotta figure that out. So that's one thing that we're trying to get to, is to have a certain amount of reach at a larger scale, and I think this is going to get us there. Not only in Colorado, but it can be all over the country and all over the world at some point.
Yeah, Jason, talk about that. What does it mean for you to, be associated, be, behind one of the companies that's completely changing how, we think about growing food, and, your designs are behind that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the design and everything. While there's a lot of pride in it, it's been nice to kind of grow what you're seeing and doing. And I mean, Colorado, I've said it. I've traveled almost all 50 states with FarmBox now. I don't think I could ever leave Colorado. We're so diverse here between city, outdoors, community. We have it all. A wide range of every of every type of person, for that matter. And so keeping it home is really cool. I mean, Colorado has been great. Like I said, I would never leave. I don't think FarmBox would ever leave at this point. Most of our team is all born and raised Colorado, which is also cool. But it's a good platform to prove where it works in the mountains, or in Denver, or in places like Pueblo, or the outer cities that might have, food insecurities or problems that people in Denver don't even know. I mean, learning what a food desert is. I mean, there's areas right here in Denver that are a food desert, and people 3 miles on the other side of the highway don't see the difference. I mean, so there's those small regions of, I think Globeville is a high one here, a big food desert, all these highway projects coming through. I know there were community greenhouses, they all got tore down. And now what, right?
Yeah, if you look at Eagle, Vale, Summit, just as an example in Colorado, there's a big gap in wealth, and you have people that can afford to eat clean, and then you have people that are eating out of gas stations, and they don't have access to that type of food. So in an area like that, to look at that, and be able to change that, that's the impact that we want to have, and being able to look at the school system and not only teach these kids how to grow their own food, but what they're putting in their bodies, and teach them the business side of running a container farm, how to look at the business side of it. That's also a lot of impact in that. So we're doing that here in Colorado. So
I think the coolest thing is, flying on these projects, as cool as the farm is, coming from it, designing it, building it, the coolest thing to me has become when you empower somebody to do it. You fly in, you get a team of people who are excited to run a farm, but they never have. And you get to interact and truly empower that person, that their intent is to do the next right thing for the people in their community. So we're just setting you up with the tools to do it and helping you go live your mission in your community. And it doesn't need to be 500-acre farm. It doesn't need to be some big elaborate building. You could put our container in a parking lot. You can put it next to a building. You can put it in a dirt field. It goes anywhere. It runs rain, snow, or shine, and you feed people every day. That's the cool part. Seeing when you leave from people, that's always the best part. Right. And people are growing food and they understand, it's like hot potato, here you go. And then they take off and run.
On the school side, I mean, we do work with a lot of schools. In Colorado, we work with a school called Epic and a school called Vale, and they're STEM schools. So a lot of what these schools teach these kids is, like when I was in high school, we had DECA, and there was some business to that, but it wasn't great for teaching you how to run a business and how to look at money and what to do. And so they can actually take whatever product they buy from us and run it as a business for the school, because there's profit. They can sell the produce, which they do. They can teach the kids how to read a P&L sheet and what does that mean. And I mean, there's so many things that they can do, and to give them that opportunity when they're young, if they want to get in and become an entrepreneur, teaching them when they're young, that's a big deal. So that's part of what they teach in these curriculums. Obviously, they're also making an impact in the community, because a lot of the food they grow feeds the students and it goes to the community. So they're getting them interested at a young age, with the right tools that they might not have had, and they're just using our product as that tool, to spark a fire.
And the farm box is a STEM lesson in itself.
Yeah.
From the manufacturing, the technology that's inside it, the mathematics. So it's not just an agricultural product.
We've gotten almost every curriculum: engineering, chemistry, biology, sciences, math, business, marketing, sales. Every school. I mean, we've got a handful of schools not in Colorado as well, but the way they use it. We have a school in North Carolina. Their program's called Farming for Failure, and they try and find out what they can run everything through where the plants still stay alive. So it's chemistry, biology, plant sciences, and the way you see these kids change their thoughts. I mean, we've learned incredible things from middle school and high school students. You know, some crazy idea that you would never think is relevant to what we're doing. And these kids have this left field idea and they just take it and run.
Yeah.
And they're doing their own little designs and their own, they get in software and programming, and they're manipulating it 100 ways beyond what we ever even thought.
Right. Yeah, it's just open source.
Yeah.
You know, when you give it to kids,
Yeah.
you know, just the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
There's
Well, there was, I think getting kids on the right track when they're young, these years are really important. One of the schools that we were working with, I wasn't a part of this, but I heard about it through Rusty. There was a teen that was going to the school, what we would say a high risk teen. She was not on the right path, and the farm landed. Her teacher kind of coerced her to come in, and anyway, she ended up staying in school, and it pretty much put her on the right path. So that's impactful. We can't really put a price on that.
yeah, there's a really awesome entrepreneurial story on your website about the military veteran. She's a walking paraplegic.
Karen Batari.
Yeah. I thought that was
in
really
Leavenworth,
fascinating.
Kansas. I actually flew out to that project and trained her.
Yeah, she grew up on the farm. Her father was a farmer. She basically joins the military to get off the farm.
Well, when you hear her story, the reason she joined the military is because it was easier to wake up military time than farm time.
Yeah.
5 a.m. every
And
day.
that was
7
her
days a
initial
week.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after an injury in the military, she returns back to farm, but instead of farming in the traditional way, she farms using FarmBox.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
everybody on
amazing
her
entrepreneurial
team,
story.
everybody on that team is a disabled veteran from multiple branches. They still run the traditional farm, but that core team isn't necessarily physically capable to manage that whole property. So our containers are inside of a warehouse. It used to be an old barn where they'd put the tractors and equipment. Now our containers are in there, and they're set up with ramps, and they're functioning in wheelchairs and running this program, and they go all basil and they sell it. They don't actually harvest the basil. They sell you the plant still alive.
Yeah.
So it's still growing. They put it in their own packaging. They display it in the stores as a veteran program with this basil growing, and
They're killing it.
that's one of the good ones too.
Yeah.
There's so many of those though.
And then when one of the farm boxes is installed in, say, urban environment, a entrepreneur can develop their own network of restaurants, grocery stores,
Sure.
to develop that business. Does FarmBox assist in any of that business development, or do they need to develop those pathways on their own?
It depends. Most of our clients, they'll figure it out. They'll have an offtake partner already, or they'll figure it out by the time the product's getting landed. They've kind of got it figured out. But there are some clients that we work with where we've helped facilitate. We do more of the pre-construction, figuring out where it's going to go, the electrical, water, permitting, and then training them to run it. On the business side, a lot of the clients that reach out to us already have that in place. They may be the offtake partner themselves, or they have this relationship where that they have the offtake partner already in place. So, but we have assisted a little bit of that. We're not necessarily building a business for them. We're giving them the tools so that they can be successful.
Right. Yeah. So where's FarmBox 5 years from now?
Well, I think with where we're at, I would hope that in 5 years we 10x the amount of farms that we have out in the world or more, and expand into some other countries that don't have food at all, where there's no access to food, but there is the ability to run these with power and water so that people can actually be fed, and probably expanding some product lines. That is where I would think we'd be in 5 years.
and in outer space.
Yeah, space.
Yeah, you used to say sky's the limit, but that's not the case anymore.
Moon and then Mars, and maybe we might be outside of the solar system. Who knows?
Yes.
I don't know. With
Yes.
what Musk is doing, we'll see. Yeah. You don't know. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining the I'm from Denver podcast. And we really look forward to following you all, following your success. And make sure you drop your comments, like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the I'm from Denver podcast.
Digital.